Bar Association president says the Ministry of Justice serves as an instrument of oppression and injustice. World Health Organization reiterates calls for equal sharing of vaccines as the world celebrates Health Day. And victims center dismayed by Defense Minister's frivolous statement. These and more coming on Gambia 24. Good evening, you're watching Gambia 24 News with me, Mariama Cham, and thanks for joining us. The president of the Bar Association has said that the Ministry of Justice under former President Jammeh was used as an institution of oppression and injustice. Lawyer Salou Tal was speaking on the second day of his appearance before the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission on Wednesday. He says former President Jammeh used the office of the Attorney General to interfere in any case he thinks is a threat to his political or economic power. Khadija Seka tells us more.
The Attorney General Chambers and Ministry of Justice is known for the provision of indispensable legal services in upholding and promoting the rule of law, justice delivery, and good governance. However, these institutions in the case of the Gambia, according to the testimony of Lawyer Tal, were routinely used to violate the fundamental human rights of the people under the dictates of the former president.
Was the Minister of Justice.
Moy buntu attekay bi ministre bi seytu walé atté bi ci réew mi.
We used to joke about it and call it Minister of Injustice.
Ñun sa légui ñukoy kafé né Minister of Injustice, ministre bi seytu walé ñak loi.
Because they did a lot of injustice to Gambian people.
Def nañ ay ñak loi jubadi yu bari ci kaw Gambien yi.
As instruments of oppression and persecution.
Di jëfëndaay bo xamné jëfëndaay notel la.
They were very pliant.
Nek nañ ño xamné
they would look at every possible way of making the law serve the purpose of what Jammeh wanted.
The TRRC witness cited the case of the then Director General of the Gambia Civil Aviation, Maimouna Tal, as a sample of clear executive interference. She was arrested for alleged involvement in an economic crime, but the witness who testified on the case exonerated her. The lawyer recorded that particular witness was later escorted by operatives of the National Intelligence Authority to the office of the then Attorney General Sheikh Tijan Haidara to face consequences of the testimony in favor of Madam Tal.
So after Kabiru testified,
he
was arrested, taken to the AG's chambers, and the AG was Sheikh Tijan Haidara. And he was threatened. There was an NIA officer, Sheikh Tijan Haidara, and I can't remember the prosecutor. But this is a witness who testified in court, and because his testimony was truthful and not in line with what the state wanted, they yanked him to the AS chambers with the NIA, threatened him, and said that they were going to charge him with giving false information.
The Bar Association president asserted that the repressive laws that Jammeh had relied on over years are still alive and used. This, he said, goes against the principles of law, noting that lawyers should be paragon of virtue and under no circumstances should the independence of the judiciary be compromised. Khadija Seka, iAfrica News.
Now, the World Health Organization has renewed calls for the equal manufacturing and sharing of more vaccines as measures to eradicate the COVID-19 global pandemic. This comes as the world commemorates World Health Day with the theme Building a Fairer, Healthier World on Wednesday. The global health body says equitable manufacturing and sharing of vaccines are still a challenge in the world, which is affecting poorer countries who are yet to receive single doses of the vaccines. More of that in this report.
Health is not just about physical well-being, but also about the mental and social aspects.
It also makes an important contribution to economic progress as healthy populations live longer and are more productive. Millions of people around the world are prey to many terrible diseases. World Health Day 2021 marks the 70th anniversary of the founding of World Health Organization. WHO stressed that illness and death from COVID-19 have been higher among groups who face discrimination, poverty, social exclusion, and adverse daily living and working conditions among countries. Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, WHO Director General, says equitable distribution of the vaccine still remains a challenge, describing it as a major barrier to eradicating the pandemic.
This week will mark the 100th day, and 190 countries and economies have now started vaccination. COVAX itself has already delivered 36 million doses to 86 countries and economies. Supply chains are up and running and health systems primed. Scaling up production and equitable distribution remains the major barrier to ending the acute stage of this pandemic. It is a travesty that in some countries health workers and those at risk groups remain completely unvaccinated.
WHO says in order for countries to move forward post-COVID-19, they should avoid cuts down in public spending on health and other social sectors. According to the United Nations body, such cuts are likely to increase hardship among already disadvantaged groups, increase health risk, and add to fiscal pressure in the future. Dr. Maria Van, COVID-19 Technical Lead of Health Emergencies Program, says individual measures should be put in place rather than depending on the vaccines to eliminate the pandemic in the world.
Vaccination is one element of the response strategy. And as Mariangela has said, as you have heard us say repeatedly over and over again, we are accused often of being a broken record, and we will be happy to continue to be this broken record until this pandemic is over. But there are a number of elements, interventions that can be used that drive down transmission. Globally, we have passed the 6th week in a row where we have seen a consecutive increase in cases around the world. Last week, there were 4 million new cases reported to WHO, and that is likely an underestimate of the true infections that have been occurring globally.
The World Health Organization emphasized that equitable sharing of rapid tests, therapeutics, oxygen, and vaccines are key to ending the acute phase of the pandemic. The economic and social disruption caused by the pandemic is devastating. Tens of millions of people are at risk of falling into extreme poverty, while the number of unnourished people currently estimated at nearly 690 million. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Mariama Cham. Now, the Gambia Center for Victims of Human Rights Violations has expressed dismay to the country's defense minister for asking victims to stop crying. Sheikh Omar Faye called on Gambians during an interview with the Fatu Network to understand that mistakes were committed during Jammeh's era and that they should move on with their lives. His comment did not, however, go down well with the Center for Victims of Human Rights Violations. More in this report by Binta Jallo.
The Gambia Center for Victims of Human Rights Violations expressed their disappointment by the remarks made by the Minister of Defense on Sunday. Regarding the human rights situation in the Gambia, Sheikh Omar Faye stated during For the People by the People show on Fatu Network, "Let us suck it up. Let us understand that we made mistakes. Let us stop crying over spilled milk. Let us look for a way out. Let us move on." The Victim Center called on Faye to urgently withdraw what it called a responsible and callous statement and apologize to all the victims of human rights violation of the former regime and resign from his portfolio as a minister or be sacked by the president. His statement came on the final episode of public hearings by the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparation Commission regarding human rights violations committed during the rule of the exiled former president. According to the victims, a statement of this nature coming from a cabinet minister signals a threat that may affect the implementation of TRRC recommendations by the government as well as the healing process of victims. The Victim Center therefore expressed its dismay with Minister Faye for his statement that must go without repugnant alert from the Center for Victims. For victims, the minister's utterance is totally unacceptable and deserves absolute condemnation in the strongest terms. As a result, they no longer trust the Defense Ministry, despite its clarification on Monday stating commitment to working closely with victims in search for justice through the Victims Center. It could be recalled that the current Chief of Defense Staff, Lieutenant General Yankuba Sonko, paid a courtesy on the Victims Center as part of his familiarization tour of institution in July 2020. Sheikh Umar Faye is the current Minister of Defense and former diplomat who served as the Gambian ambassador to the United States from 2015 to 2016. For iAfrica News, Binta Jallo.
Now, Gambian Afro-Manding artists Omar Conte and Lamin Camara, alias O-Boy and Gambian Child, are set to launch their album on Jutanaya, a Mandinka term meaning to be belittled. According to O-Boy, the album represents his struggle and how he was belittled by his family and the society for going into music at a young age. Fatimata Kasim has the rest of that.
O-Boy and Gambian Child emerged as Afro-Manding band in 2016 and have been consistent paving a niche in the Gambian music industry. Speaking at the press briefing ahead of their album launch, O-Boy described their music as a vibe meant to entertain and educate the masses. Jutunaya, as the album is named, according to O-Boy, is a reflection of the Gambian society and how it works. He says Gambians with no hesitations look down on people for no reason, an attitude he hopes to end through the message in his album.
Okay, Jutunaya ben na musical economy alongo aben society lekononga mole karadi.
The belittling that is in our society is what we want to sensitize our people on. The way people always look down on us is because we were poor. We always sing our life experience because all my life I was always looked down upon to where I am now. So when I noticed that, it was not only me that went through such. This is a problem that the Gambia is facing. We look down upon one another for no reason. Since when I was young, the house I grew up in were the first to look down on me, then the society. I went into dancing where I received a similar treatment. I also went into acting. The same attitude was given to me. And now, in the music industry, the same belittling continues. But this will stop on the 19th April.
He assured that there will be adequate security for the event scheduled for the 9th of April at Q City in Bijilo for their fans to have fun.
Everything is set.
Everything is set up. We have strong security because O-Boy's fans are in the old and young generation. And whenever you call people, you have to make sure that their security becomes your main priority. The place needs to be secured. Performance-wise, our album will be different from other album launch. We are not just coming on stage just to sing songs and go home, but our ways are different. If you listen to our songs and watch our videos, you will see the difference come that day. There will be music, acting, and many other side attractions, which will be a surprise.
He urged people to come in large numbers to support him and Gambian music, saying those that to make it to the event will not regret paying for the tickets. For iAfrica News, I am Fatimata Kasim.
That report by Fatmata Kasim will take us to a break, and we will be back with the rest of the news. Stay with us.
They say we slept in one world and woke up in another. This global tragedy got humans together despite our social distancing. Our nature is taking a break. And giving us a wake-up call on what and who truly matters. Look around you. Hold on. Breathe. Count your blessings. Take time for self-renewal, for a better start tomorrow. Soon, life will be back. Meanwhile, let's stand apart together with one heart.
Welcome back, and still on Gambia 24. The United Democratic Party has chosen party leader and Secretary General Lawyer Usaini Dabo as standard bearer for the December 2021 presidential elections. The former vice president emerged as the party's candidate following the withdrawal of 3 other UDP members in the last hour of the selection process on Wednesday. The chairman of the UDP in the West Coast region, Abdul Dabo, KMC Regional Administrative Secretary, and Usainu Mbub and Lamin J. Dabo from Gunjur all forwarded their application in response to the call by the UDP National Executive. The election of Dabo as UDP's standard bearer to contest President Adama Barrow later this year came barely 2 weeks after the party's Central Committee opened the bid for the filling of the position. Now, the Ministry of Health has promised to do a thorough investigation into allegations that some health workers are selling negative COVID-19 results. The move comes following an undercover investigation by Malagan published on April 2nd, capturing health workers on camera selling negative COVID-19 results to travelers. The ministry says the state of such results undermines the country's efforts to contain the spread of the COVID-19. Naisisa reports.
The statement followed the recent investigative documentary published by Mulligan, which appeared to show health officials taking bribes from people for COVID-19 negative certificates. The release stated henceforth all COVID-19 certificates must be paid for at the bank and a verifiable recipient number will be given before any test is conducted. The investigative documentary featured Mr. Lamin Nyasi working in the COVID-19 response team and Mr. Lamin Sane, former laboratory staff of both the National Public Health Laboratory and AfriMed Clinic Laboratory. As a result, the ministry is hereby informing the public that Mr. Lamin Sane is no longer working with the National Public Health Laboratory, and therefore his involvement in the COVID-19 work has nothing to do with the National Public Health Laboratory. The Health Ministry assured the public that they will seriously investigate the allegation and anyone found involved in the matter will face the law. The statement stated that it is an offense under the laws of the Gambia to unlawfully seek for COVID-19 negative test results without taking the test. Meanwhile, the cases mentioned in the video have been reported to the police station and due process is being instituted by the police. The COVID-19 global pandemic has posed threats to many countries across the world, and the Gambia, being the poorest country with a fragile health system, to have been involved in bribery during this time could worsen the situation in the country. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Daisy.
Well, viewers, that story by Daisy will bring us to the end of Gambia 24 newscast. Thanks for watching. I am Mariama Cham, and do have a good night.